Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Powers, and I want to thank you for joining me on the Fort Podcast today. This show is an open-ended discussion and journey covering real estate, business, entrepreneurship, and investing. I would love to hear from you by tweeting me at Fort Worth Chris on Twitter. Hey guys, it's Chris. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Fort. I hope you guys are not getting sick and tired of just listening to episodes of me chatting about our business. I promise you I have a lot of incredible interviews coming up, but had a cancellation today and wanted to deliver. And so I am going to talk about something that I get asked very often, which is kind of how you go from being maybe a 1 or 2 man company kind of doing real estate deals to actually building a platform that is doing deals, where very often you as the original person that was making it all happen end up becoming somebody that's running more of a business than actually doing the things that you started out doing. So my guess is a lot of these things are very common in most businesses. I can speak to building a real estate business, so that's what I'm going to talk about. Again, I didn't prep for this, but I've had this conversation a lot of times, so bear with me. But I'm excited to just kind of riff on it. So we'll kind of start early on, and just assuming I'm making the assumption that you have maybe set off, maybe you've already been doing it, or you're setting off to start a business, and you're kind of maybe it's you and a partner, or maybe you and a partner and assistant, but relatively small. And in those early days, the whole goal is to buy that first deal. And buying that first deal, it could be challenging or it could not be challenging, and for many reasons. One, if you're just getting started and maybe you've never done anything in real estate, but you maybe have invested passively or you've been studying on it and you're comfortable enough to make the leap, I think a lot of challenges in finding that first deal are, one, not a lot of people in the market know who you are. Brokers don't know who you are, and you don't have a track record of closing anything. If you do get a deal, presenting it to investors at first, it might be challenging to raise money from outside investors. Maybe you will have family and friends that are betting more on you than probably on the project. And on the flip side of that, if you're entering the world and maybe you've been in the industry forever and you've been at a big company or a larger company and you decide to go out into the world, your challenges are different. Maybe you already have a track record, at least a track record that you have successfully completed similar projects at other companies. You probably have a really well-rounded network, maybe in the industry or the market you're getting into, but you're maybe a little more prepared to raise capital, find deals, build relationships. Maybe you already have a bank or a lender that is willing to lend to you. Maybe you already have a balance sheet that you built up. So those are just like all things to consider. I mean, when you are a one-man band, what people care about is, one, how much skin are you going to put in the game? 2, are you able to raise debt, and under what terms are you able to get it? 3, do you have a track record? Do you know brokers in the market? Do you have an attorney? Do you have an accountant that you trust? And then do you have vendors and service providers that once you buy a property, or when you're doing due diligence on a property, or you're underwriting a property, do you have trusted resources that can help give you, 1, a fair opinion, but 2, good pricing? And do you know what good pricing looks like? So you're getting started, assuming you have maybe 1 or 2 people. I'm just kind of taking the approach that you're not working out of your house. So you enter the market, you gotta get an office, you gotta fill it with office furniture, you gotta buy computers, you gotta buy maps, you got to download certain software packages that'll help make your business better. You have to get an email. You have to get, servers or subscriptions to save documents to. You got to buy printers. You got to do a lot of things that have nothing to do with buying real estate, but they're costly. And once you get your office set up, you're out looking for deals, and you might get 1 or 2 done. I'm assuming you've gotten a couple done. And I think that's an inflection point of, what am I going to do with this company? Am I going to be somebody that is going to do a couple deals a year, not really looking to grow, which, by the way, can be very profitable, very lucrative, but also comes with a lot of risk? Or am I somebody that wants to be doing 10, 20, 30 deals a year? And those are two totally different worlds. When you are doing 1 to 2 deals a year, the majority of the fees that you're collecting are what is, paying for you to live. Those fees can help be some of the equity that you have to put into a deal so that you have your skin in the game. You are very likely not in a position yet to be getting non-recourse debt. So you're probably signing on more bank guarantees, which is more risk. You probably have limited amount of investors. I mean, if you're doing 1 to 2 deals a year, a lot of people might just have one partner or maybe a few, but very, very seldom would you see somebody doing 1 or 2 deals a year that maybe has 100 partners. So there's not a whole lot to manage there. But when you're doing those deals, you're sourcing them. That takes time. That takes lots of tours. That takes tours of buildings. That's lots of lunches with brokers and meeting people. That takes lots of, if you found a building that you like, you got to stop everything and underwrite it. That can take, anywhere from 5 minutes. That could take 2 days, depending on how complex the deal is or the different sources of information you need to gather from. If you like what you're doing and you like the deal that you've underwritten, then you got to put the pencil down and draft a contract, and you got to send that in. You got to spend time negotiating on it. When you, as you're going through, you're working with an attorney you're having to get on and off the phone with as comments are being passed. You might be in a position to be able to put earnest money down, but you might not. So you might have to get creative and have somebody lend you the amount to put as earnest money. Then you get it under contract and lots of things happen. You have to, one, put together an investor deck, which you might have been doing before you actually put it under contract. But sometime during that process, you have to put together an investment deck that's polished and ready for investors to see. You have to call lots of your vendors and folks that are going to help you with due diligence. You got to call a company to get you a survey, maybe an environmental company. You have to do inspectors, roof inspectors, foundation inspectors. You might, if you're buying commercial or even residential, you have to sit down and do tenant interviews. And all the while that you're doing these things, you're not doing other things like sourcing new deals, underwriting deals. Every minute that's spent doing one thing, again, because you're a one, maybe 2-man band, there's just a lot you're not doing. So it's a lot of stop and go in the deal business. And then you get to a point where it looks like you're going to go hard on your money. You've sent out your investor deck. Then you might be spending time fundraising, having investor calls, going and meeting with people. Hopefully it doesn't take very long, but it can. You're waiting for all your due diligence reports to come back in, and then you're having to read through all those due diligence reports and make sure that what you put under contract is what you're getting. If you have to go back and renegotiate with a seller, that's going to take time, and you've already spent some money on that deal, vetting it, and so you're really hoping to keep it on track. And then take one step back. You've had to engage a bank at this point. So you're now running conversations with a bank and you're waiting for them to take your pitch through a loan committee and get approvals and waiting to see what terms you're going to get. And then as you get close to closing, you're managing the bank, your attorney. You have a title company that's sending you title reports and schedules to check on the title. Again, I said you're going through all your due diligence. And so there's a lot of time spent analyzing all of that. If you're buying commercial buildings, you're reading every lease. And, sometimes you could have, several tenants, and those can be long leases. And so you're reading all your leases and you are determining what they say and making sure that they fit your rent roll and your underwriting model. You're then starting to talk to potential leasing brokers or third-party managers, assuming that you're not doing that in-house. If you are doing that stuff in-house as a one-man band, again, I don't know anything more than the next guy, but I would not recommend doing deals, managing deals, leasing them on your own right out the gate. That is a lot to take on. And again, it can be constant chaos where you just don't know what your day is going to bring you. If a roof leak happens in the middle of a day where you're trying to tour properties and you have a tenant that needs that fixed quickly, and you're the ones, kind of performing the management. You got to stop what you're doing, call a roofer, make sure they get out there, check up with that roofer, make sure it went well. You're going to get the bill. And I think one of the most important things early on in all of this that's going on is you're waiting to get to that close, and you close, and then there's a whole nother side of things that happen. You got to get everything inked up and organized. I'm assuming at this point you have selected an accounting system. You're either outsourcing your accounting or you've learned QuickBooks and you're doing it in-house. But I think one of the things I find most people that go start that have not run a business before is accounting is almost an afterthought. And we'll get around to it. I would say it is one of the most important things you could do. How you pick your accountant is very important. Again, you can do it on your own, recommend QuickBooks. And on that tangent, as you're setting up, different softwares and you're a one or two man person, you're probably on a budget, and selecting those softwares can take time, CoStar, LoopNet, but then there's lots, those are the obvious, but then there's a lot of others that people use. And, taking the time to do demos and learn which ones you want or don't want, that takes time. And so early on, there's just a lot of things going on that, while they're all leading to getting a deal done, and by the way, being a one or two man company, a very small company that does one or two deals a year, it can be a great career. But deciding that, I think, is important, and knowing that is important, because what you really see a lot of the time is companies that operate that way, but their ambitions are really to do lots of deals. And as they start to scale, they're really thinking about scaling to 25 deals the same way they thought about scaling from 1 to 2 deals. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But going back to closing that deal, you've been working with the title company, you've been doing all your administrative work, you've been getting everything done. Again, a lot of stop and go. You don't know what your days are going to look like, and you get those first couple deals bought. And you made probably an acquisition fee when you bought it. You're getting some type of management fee. Again, one of the things that you see with smaller companies is they do not charge what I would just call market or appropriate fees, because they don't have a ton of overhead to cover. And so what they'll often do is just look at fees as like, how can I basically break even and cover my cost to live while I build this company? And then as they grow, they start realizing it's really hard to hire more people if I'm going to keep charging these fees, because there's just not enough money to pay everybody. And that often goes on for a while before they kind of look in the mirror and go, holy shit, I'm running my operating company at a loss. And the only way that I'm breaking even is when I sell a deal and create a promote. And then I'm just using my promote dollars to pay for my employees. And so you have 1 or 2 deals, you've closed. Now, everything I just said that happens when, let's just say you closed your first deal, now as you're looking for your second deal, all those things are in play. But now what's in play is you're also managing decisions on the deal you already bought. You got leases that you got to consider. Maybe a vacancy happens and you're working with a leasing broker on a new tenant. Maybe assuming you hired a third-party property manager, they call you and say, major roof leak, and you're determining what your budget is to fix that while you're also trying to find a new deal. And as you continue to stack up more deals inside of your company, without hiring more people to start doing certain roles, the time that you have to hunt for the next deal becomes limited. And if you are spending more time looking for deals, even with a full house of deals already, then you're probably not giving enough attention to executing on what you already have. So you have this kind of chicken and the egg problem. You have to do really well on the deals you already have, but you also have to be sourcing new things and kind of keep both going. And oh, by the way, if you decide to sell a deal, then you're going to be selling a deal, especially a larger property. It's not just hiring a realtor, putting it on the market and selling it in 30 days. There's a lot more that goes into transacting on multifamily and commercial properties. So there's just a lot that goes on in a small real estate kind of private equity type of shop. And understanding that and understanding the ebbs and the flows and the chicken and the egg is really important. And I just don't think it's not something that was taught to me. And it's something that, just like looking back, I realized just kind of happened over time. But where I sit today, I think most people would be shocked that I don't do most of the things that I used to do. I don't underwrite deals and find deals anymore. I don't asset manage them anymore. I don't raise our bank financing anymore. I do not deal with the title company anymore. Not things that I don't, it's not that I didn't love doing them, but as you start building a company, you have to make the decision to either build a company or to keep doing deals. And I really don't think you can do both successfully, at least over the long term. And again, in an up market with things have been great and rosy for 10 years, people can get away with sloppy work or sloppy execution, but it's when things get tough that you really figure out where the holes are. So you end year one, and I'm assuming that this is somebody that has elected to want to grow a bigger company. It's easy to buy. Let's say your business plan is I'm going to buy 2 deals in year one, and I'm going to buy 4 deals in year 2 and 8 deals in year 3. I'm going to double every year for the next 3 years. Well, it's really easy when you buy the first 2 to go, well, I bought 2 this year. I kind of know what I'm doing. I've built some relationships. I've met some investors. I've got good vendors. I've done all these things. I'll just go buy 4 this year. But I think what happens in year 2 is you start realizing that the 2 deals you bought are taking a lot of time. You don't have as much time to source deals as you did in year 1. And not only do you not have as much time, but now you got to source 4 of them instead of 2 of them. And so what you end up having to do, every situation has its nuance to it. So take everything kind of with a grain of salt. But to get to 4 deals, we have to hire someone to handle a lot of kind of maybe the administrative duties around the office. And I have a silver bullet that I think is one of the best first hires when you're hiring outside of maybe the founder or the couple partners that started a business. And I've tweeted about this before. But we really early on in the company hired somebody, shout out to Shayna, that had been a commercial loan assistant at a commercial bank that we had borrowed from. We had a relationship with her, had worked with her on several transactions, but she was fantastic. And she is really helped change the way we thought about things and really added momentum. And when you hire a commercial loan assistant, and I would recommend hiring one that's been there for a while, here's what you're getting. You're getting someone that, 1, worked at a bank. Banks are traditionally good at training. 2, as a commercial loan assistant working for a commercial loan originator or a business development guy that's bringing in deals, is you are very often part of every transaction. You're helping put together the documents. You're helping make sure that they're correct. You're helping set up closings. You're working with title companies. You're seeing why deals are getting killed or why they're happening. You're typically very organized and very detailed. And you have a really good kind of feel for how real estate transactions happen. You've read plenty of legal agreements, leases, purchase agreements. You know how to look at surveys. You know how to read title reports. All things that a commercial loan assistant does on the banking side is an extreme value add to the principal side, to the owner side. And so as you think about how am I going to do 4 deals, some of the first work that you can kind of offload or delegate are a lot of those things. Once we get this deal, who's going to be in charge of working with the title company? Who's going to be in charge of reading the leases? Who's going to be in charge of setting up due diligence and then going through due diligence reports? Who's going to be the person kind of coordinating back and forth with attorneys? I'm not saying they're negotiating on your behalf, but they're helping move information back and forth. And when you're transacting in real estate, there's lots of information moving back and forth, especially in the due diligence pre-closing phase. And a commercial loan assistant is very fluent in all of those little different parts of the transaction. So I would hire that person. But again, when you're hiring that person and you've never hired anybody, now your new sets of challenges are coming up. Now you have to be able to offer a competitive salary, and you probably have to offer benefits, and hope you have enough office space because you're probably going to need to add another desk and another computer, and you're going to have to update some of your software subscriptions to add another user to them. And, little things like that. So the cost of a new employee is not just their salary and their benefits. There's lots of other costs that come along with it. And if you don't have an established track record or you're not starting out in a really solid financial position, anybody that's going to want to come work for you wants to know that there's security there and there's safety there. And it's going to be challenging to find, great people right out the gate unless you have a really compelling offer where you're maybe giving up equity or you're paying them a lot more or you have something to offer. And all along, you've spent the first year doing deals. You probably haven't set up how to interview people, how to post jobs, how to make great job descriptions. Again, you just wanted to do real estate deals, but now this is the first peek behind the curtain of now we're starting to build a business. And so what could take another company, an established business, 30 days, 60 days to find the right person, you might spend 6 months doing that. But if you don't even realize you need that person until year 2 starts and you're, best case, maybe 3 months, worst case, maybe 6 months it takes to hire them, you're halfway through the year before you have enough horsepower again to start working on new opportunities. And by the way, that person can help you work through how to execute on your current assets, but only to a certain degree because their plate is going to be full if you're doing 4 new deals that year. So you've spent half the year finding that person. It's slowed you down in that 4-deal business plan. And it's the first kind of stark reality that, oh crap, every time we hire someone new, there's just a lot we're going to have to do. And so, maybe one word of advice I give to people is, you might not know it if you start something 6 months into it that you're going to need that person starting year 2. But if you are going to keep growing, you almost want to start thinking about that person, 6 months before you really need them, because it could take 6 months to find them. It could take 30 days. Maybe you have somebody that that would be perfect, that trusts you. But a lot of people, it takes a long time to hire. Again, for startups that are not super well funded or with founders that have a proven track record that have done it multiple times, it can be tougher. And so, you end up spending that year, really starting to think about those things. So now you're dealing with properties that you own. You're dealing with sourcing new properties. You now have a person that you're accountable for. So you're dealing with people. And it doesn't really stop there. Let's just say you are successful in year 2 and you get your 4 deals. Well, now starting year 3, it's like, okay, well, we're going to go buy 8 deals. And again, take this with some of these numbers with a grain of salt. It's not as much about the 2 or the 4 or the 8. It's more just the double of business. Now, you have 6 deals in your portfolio. You really need to start hiring, trained asset managers or somebody who wakes up and shows up to that office every day with the mission of improving the assets inside of the portfolio. Again, if the 2 partners that started are constantly working on those first 6 deals that you bought in the 2 years, there's just no way in hell they have time to go work on buying the next 8 deals. And so now, again, you're back in the hiring phase. Maybe you found an asset manager. You got to be competitive. You have to have something compelling to offer. But again, now you got to add another desk, another computer, benefits, more office space you're going to have to pay for. You probably need a conference room at this point, so you can have meetings and you can have clients in. You have enough deals at this point and enough under management. And so things continue to get more expensive. You might now have some type of HR software or a new communication tool or some type of CRM or some way to have a place where all your work is done. And those are things that you didn't need at 1 or 2 people or even 3 people. But as your team keeps growing at 4, there's just things that you need if you want to keep things consistent. And as you add people, you're starting to create processes. When you have 1 or 2 people, the process is just communicate really well and kind of keep going. But as you keep adding people to the journey, the process changes. And I think there's something I read that, every time you double in size, your processes they don't necessarily always radically change, 180, but they have to be improved on. A process that works for 4 people doesn't necessarily work for 40 people or even 10 people. And so in year 3, as you're buying 8 deals, now not only are you hiring, not only are you managing 6 deals, not only do you have 2 employees now, and you're finding 8 deals, and you've now signed on 8 bank loans, and you have all these investors, but you now have to start working on process. How are we going to do things in here to be more efficient? And that takes a lot of time. And it's not necessarily the most fun things to work on. So either the 2 partners have to lead that charge. Maybe the asset manager is going to lead that charge. Maybe the commercial loan assistant, we call that position a project coordinator, is going to lead that charge. But somebody has to be accountable for setting up processes. And what I would tell you that I have found the majority of the time are the 1 or 2 founders that were eager to start a business and do deals. What makes them the type of people that would want to go do that does also not make them the type of people that are really detail oriented, ready to start all these processes. And so you got to find somebody to take accountability. If you don't have that in the office, and I'm not saying you necessarily need a full-time, kind of operational person at 4 people, but you kind of got to, have some type of system between the 4 people on board that at least somebody's thinking about it, because that's how things start slipping through the crack. That's how, we forgot to, notify our tenants, or we forgot to, lots of things. I won't go into all of them. So again, now you're underwriting deals on these 8 transactions you have going on. You have due diligence going on all year. You're constantly underwriting. And I'm not going to keep going every year, but you're starting to see how a lot is happening. And then I would say you kind of get through year 3 and you're drinking through a fire hose and it feels great. You've bought, lots of deals. You've started to hire people and you're building a brand. And that next real scale, I think that's about as far. Again, I don't get so caught up on 2, 4, 8. But that's when you really have to make another decision. Is this the company that we want to be? And I would say you've probably started noticing at this point that the light fees that we charged, because we didn't have a track record and we wanted to do things really, make the best possible deal for the investor early on. You're starting to realize that those deals and those deal structures don't work when you now have 5 mouths to feed, 6 mouths to feed, computers to buy, software to buy, legal bills to pay, accounting software. It doesn't scale well. So now you're sitting there going, if we're going to grow, we have to change our deal structures. You don't have to charge a fee that's egregious or taking advantage of something. Again, investors don't have to invest, but you do have to start upping your prices because you can't scale a business if you're not collecting any revenue. And again, one of the first things I see a lot of young businesses start out as is very light on fees, and it catches up to them down the road. And it's something that we did. I mean, early on, we weren't even charging fees. We made a fee when we closed, and we did everything out of the promote, which your promotes often aren't going to hit for 3 to 5 years. And then, oh, by the way, you go to sell a deal that you've been collecting some type of consistent fee on. Well, you might have done well and hopefully hit a home run with your deal, but you did lose a consistent fee stream. So you got to go replace that deal. So every time you sell a deal, you need to, if that's the money that's paying for your employees, you got to replace that deal, or you start going into the red, or you start coming out of pocket, or you start paying people out of your promote, or, long list of reasons why you need to replace deals. And really early on, it's almost impossible once you start adding people that that you don't go into the red. And that's in lots of businesses, the messy middle, where you're betting on the come, you're trying to grow. You know that if you can get to economies of scale that you can get to a size where you can keep bringing on assets without having to hire more and more people every time you do it. But early on, those first 6 to 12 bodies that enter the office are crucial. And again, more people coming on board. You have HR issues now. You have people to worry about. You have things to worry about that have absolutely nothing to do with buying a real estate deal, adding value to it, and making money. You just have a whole nother set of issues. And so one of the the biggest challenges and most rewarding challenges in my life was that leap from, a 5 or 6 person company where we were running around with our heads on fire every day, like a chicken with its head cut off, and going to that 25-person company. And what a 25-person company looks like, at least from my perspective, is, and it's really a 30-person company if you take our accountants over in India, but we have an asset management team. We have analysts that underwrite deals. So we have an asset management team, and they are in charge of participating in our initial due diligence of buying a deal, of making sure that the acquisitions team, their model is checking out. Once we own assets, they're in charge of dealing with our leasing brokers, executing our business plans, working with construction and property management to make sure our business plan is going according to pro forma. And they do. They're in charge of reforecasting our assets every quarter. There's a lot that goes on there. Then you go to our acquisition team. They're out hunting all day for deals. Once they found a deal, they're involved in kind of quarterbacking and making sure that the team is fully aware of the deal that we're doing and educating people on it. And then they're in charge of going back out and hunting. We have analysts that are helping to underwrite deals, both for asset managers, doing underwriting on deals we already own and deals that we're going to buy. You have our finance team that's helping source loans. At a 25-person company, we have 40 or 50 deals. We have, I think, 42, 43 deals. You are always dealing with a bank. There's always some covenant. You're renewing a loan. You're getting a new loan. You're refinancing a loan. There's something going on, but there's a whole team for that now. Then you move to accounting. We have 4 people in accounting. We have a controller, an accounting manager, 2 property accountants, and then we have 5 accountants over in India. Accounting is one of the is one of the teams that kind of grows the quickest in the organization. Real estate takes a lot of accounting. You have our property management team. We have property managers, a director of construction that are managing. You have our marketing team, who's helping to, 1, market the company, 2, help property management with marketing materials for properties, 3, helping put together, presentations for Fort Capital and internal marketing. Then you have our executive team. We choose to have a technology team, but all these teams start forming. And, nobody ever really told me that there was this blueprint for how teams would evolve. We just kind of kept figuring it out how it went. And so, and then you have kind of these bigger teams, and we now have a leadership team where it's the team lead of every team I just mentioned, having to form that team and get those people on the same page and rowing in the same direction. Then you might have people from the asset management team, acquisition team, finance team, and executive team as part of what I'd call a deal team. They participate in investment committee. They are all in on getting the deal done. I forgot to mention we have a full-time person that purely works on all of our transactions. She works on all of our insurance renewals. She works as investor relations. So all these things keep going. And then you get to a point where you were that guy that was running around putting deals together, raising money, and you pick yourself up 5 years down the road, and you're not doing any of that anymore. You're now running a company, helping build a business, helping be a cheerleader for your team. And the gap between 6 to 25 people, there's just a lot of challenge there. And for someone like me that was that initial person that started a company doing deals, you're never really realizing where you are and what your job is constantly is improvising. It's constantly changing. You're continuing to level up. And I think we're, again, not saying that Fort Capital is a great company, but I think one of the decisions that was good that I made and that my partner made is, we are going to go into business building mode, not continuing to fight our way to be doing the deals, because it's damn near impossible to run a company and also be the person out finding deals, putting them together, underwriting them. It's just very stressful. I don't think it's the best way to set up organizational structure. And eventually it doesn't work. The founder, the CEO, whatever you want to call him, has to make that decision. I mean, when you go around and look at, the real estate private equity firms, whether they're middle market or large market, You don't ever see the CEO or the high level executive staff doing any one of those job functions. You see amazing teams that were built. But what you often find are all of those executives or the CEO and the founder at one point was on one of those teams or on lots of those teams, or they were a one-man team doing everything. And so they have all that experience, but they're no longer doing it anymore. And that can be a challenge in of itself. As I got in this business because I wanted to do deals, not build a business. And so all things you need to think about. I would say, when you're working at a well-oiled machine, things look very easy. And look, I'm the biggest cheerleader for entrepreneurship, for starting your own business. But the deal industry and the real estate private equity industry, for folks that are kind of starting, deal by deal, they're not backed by, some GP capital partner that's helping, give them a few $1,000,000 early on to hire a big team. They're kind of growing organically. There's just challenges that happen along the way. They are rewarding challenges, but all along you have to be thinking of, am I going to be building a business, or am I going to stay small? And sometimes you don't know. Sometimes it just sneaks up on you. Nobody necessarily always knows, but at least continuing to ask yourself that question kind of helps along the way. And just taking one step back, when I was talking about that operational person at 4 people, you don't necessarily need a full-time operational person. But when you start getting to 6, 8, 10 people, you're going to have an employee whose sole job is just to make sure that everything's kind of working, that teams are in harmony, that communication's happening. That can be one of the initial founders. The title would be like a COO or a president. You might have to hire a VP of operations, but some of the most disjointed companies come when there is not somebody showing up every day going, my job is to make sure everybody works well together, and that I understand why acquisitions is frustrated with asset management and why asset management is frustrated with finance. Because again, these people have joined those teams. They're finance specialists. They're not operational specialists. So while they know there could be issues, they don't necessarily always know how to fix them. And when you have a lot of people that mean well, but don't know how to work together, which is tough. If that's how great cultures are built and great processes are built over a lifetime. 10 people showing up, all from 10 different companies at day one. Using an example, 10 great people at their previous companies all arrive day one at a new company, and they start. They don't know how to work together. The process. Everybody had a different process for how to do the same thing at another company. Those things take lots of trial and error and figuring out what's going to work and what's not going to work. And that is a very exciting job for some people in the world, and it's not a very exciting job for other people in the world. And I would just say that bridge of getting those teams to build and that harmony to build when you're going from 4 people to 25 people is some of the most critical steps in the journey. So I don't know if today's episode made any sense to anybody. I have this conversation all the time. It's something that is on my mind quite a bit. There's still things at Fort that we are challenged with every day. And, our next big leap will be going from 25 to 50 people. I've spent a lot of time talking to people about what that growth will look like. Doubling from 25 to 50 looks a lot different than doubling from 10 to 20. But the mindset and the thought behind it, and just being thoughtful that these things are occurring, can be your best friend. And projecting and having budgets and annual operating budgets that help you understand, when it's time to hire again. Every time we buy 1 million square feet, we need to hire an accountant and an asset manager or something like that. Almost having a blueprint so you can see how your business will grow over time gives you plenty of time to prepare to hire. It lets you know who you're going to need to hire and when. And this is not magic. People have done this for decades, hundreds of years, set up these type of companies, maybe not hundreds of years, maybe. But ask people, if you're a 5-person company and your ambition is to go to a 25-person company, it's easy to get enamored by all the cool deals they're doing. But go to the COO, go to the CEO and say, look, I'm not here to talk about real estate today. I'm here to talk about what did you do and what are the pain points and the stories that you had going from 5 people to 25 people. I will tell you that will be a fun couple of hours, you will learn more hearing that side of the story than how they did their 100th deal. But again, when you're in the deal business, the fun part is the deal. It's not always the company building. And I'm here to say I would highly focus on the company building. And if you do that, you'll do the best deals, you'll get a lot of deals, and you'll have a company that is ultimately doing what your original dream was to do. So thank you so much for continuing to join me on this journey. This has just been so much fun. I look forward to an incredible 2021. We have some incredible guests coming on, and so few things that we're going to add to the podcast and the learning experience over the next year. So stay tuned, and thank you again. Hey everyone, it's Chris here again. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating, or write a quick review. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Chris Powers is the founder and CEO of Fort Capital LP. All opinions from Chris and guests of the Fort Podcast are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Fort Capital LP. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for real estate or investment decisions. The Fort with Chris Powers is produced by Straight Up Podcasts.